Koda wasn't the biggest dog at the police K-9 unit. He was a German Shepherd Malinois mix, all muscle and energy. But what stood out most wasn't his strength. It was his eyes. They were sharp and steady, yet full of something you didn't see in every working dog: empathy. Sergeant Reyes noticed that on the very first day. "Look at him," he said. "That one's not just watching. He's thinking." Koda's partner was Officer Mark Jensen, calm, patient, and the kind of man who believed that trust couldn't be trained, only earned. They worked side by side for months, learning to move as one. Mark taught Koda how to find missing people, how to wait, how to charge only when the moment demanded it. It wasn't easy. Koda's energy sometimes ran ahead of the mission. He'd bark at passing motorcycles or chase an empty soda can rolling down the lot. But when it counted, when the situation turned tense, his focus locked like a lens. He knew what mattered. Their first real test came on a cold autumn night. A child was missing in the industrial part of town. The air smelled of rust and rain as blue and red lights flickered across cracked concrete walls. Mark showed Koda the child's jacket, and the dog lowered his head, sniffing once, twice, then pulling forward with quiet certainty. Through puddles and fences, past the hum of distant machinery, Koda tracked the scent until he stopped for a pile of old pallets. There, trembling and cold, was a small boy, eyes wide but alive. Koda sat and waited, tail softly wagging. When the child threw his arms around his neck, Koda didn't move. He just breathed. That night back at the station, no one talked about protocols or reports. They talked about the dog with the steady eyes. Weeks later, the job turned dangerous. During a stormy patrol, a stolen car sped past their cruiser. The chase tore through slick streets until the suspects crashed and fled on foot. Mark and Koda followed into the maze of alleys. They caught one suspect quickly, but the second was hiding behind a dumpster, metal pipe in hand. As the man lunged, Koda reacted without thought, leaping forward and knocking the weapon away. Backup arrived seconds later, but Koda's paw was cut on broken glass. Mark knelt beside him in the rain, whispering, "Easy, boy." "You did good." The vet stitched him up, and Mark stayed by his side through the night. For Koda, that quiet presence meant more than praise. Recovery was slow. Days stretched into weeks of rest and frustration. Koda didn't understand why he couldn't run or train, but every morning Mark came by, brushing his coat, speaking softly. "We'll be back out there soon," he'd promise. And when Koda finally returned to duty, something in him had changed. He was calmer, wiser. He no longer chased the world. He read it. He moved with the patience of someone who had seen what fear looked like up close and knew how to meet it with courage. Months later, another call came in. Fire in an abandoned building, possible people trapped inside. By the time Mark and Koda arrived, flames were pouring from broken windows. Firefighters were still connecting hoses. Mark looked at Koda, then at the building. "We can't wait," he said, and they went in together. Inside was chaos, smoke, collapsing beams, the roar of fire. Koda's ears twitched. Beneath the noise, he heard something faint, coughing, movement. He pulled Mark toward the sound. Two teenagers were trapped behind fallen wood and metal. Mark radioed for help just as part of the ceiling gave way. Koda barked once, hard, and shoved Mark backward, taking the hit himself. The debris caught his side, but he stayed on his feet, barking until rescuers arrived. Outside, sirens wailed, and firefighters carried the boys to safety. Mark found Koda covered in soot, but alive, tail twitching weakly. He pressed his forehead to Koda's and whispered something no one else could hear. The next morning, sunlight filled the station. Koda lay on a blanket, patched up again, eyes open, steady as ever. Mark sat beside him. "You saved them," he said quietly. Koda didn't know the words, But he understood the tone, the gratitude, the bond that didn't need translation. In time, Koda returned to full strength, and the city moved on. New cases, new calls, new noise. But in every shift, every long night, Mark carried the same truth with him. Courage isn't about strength or speed. It's about heart, the will to stand firm when others falter, to act without hesitation when someone needs you. Koda never sought medals or applause. He simply did what he was meant to do: protect, serve, and trust the person beside him. They worked together for years after that, their partnership quiet but unbreakable. People often saw them and smiled, the calm officer and his loyal dog. But those who knew their story saw more. They saw a friendship built on loyalty, bravery, and a shared understanding that sometimes the truest heroes don't wear badges or speak words. They simply stay when it matters most. Koda, the police dog who never gave up, became a small legend in the city, not because of headlines or ceremonies, but because of the way he looked at the world. Steady, thoughtful, ready to act, and always guided by that quiet, unshakable courage that defines what it truly means to protect and serve.